Hello, Megan. Welcome back to the show. I am so glad to see your face again today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Me too. This is a very important topic, I feel like, as we're constantly bombarded in this world with distractions. Distractions from all areas of our life. You could argue today we're stimulated a lot, so we're always being bombarded with technology. But I like to think that our minds are just very good at keeping us distracted from what we're going to talk about today, which is our own intuitive power. And I don't know where along the line we've sort of handed over our intuition and our power to centralized authority figures or whatever you want to say, but we tend
Mhm.
to listen to everybody else except ourselves.
Yeah.
So I want to focus today on, and you are basically a healer of many different types of healing modalities, and I know that you work with other people, not only your own clients, but I know that you teach and you teach
Mhm.
workshops and classes about healing and intuition. So that's why you're here today. I want to talk about this. So I'm going to give you the floor. My very first big question, it's a simple one to you, is just explain what intuition is. Like, let's just get down to basics so people get an idea of really what it is, because I think we get stuck in our heads and really don't understand the intuitive side.
Absolutely. And I'll start with what intuition isn't. It isn't woohoo.
Right.
Let's just clear that up here, okay?
Say that again.
It's not woohoo. Your intuition is a muscle in your body. It's like an energetic muscle. And what it is fundamentally is your own knowing.
Right.
It's what you know. And it's an integrated system. It's kind of like your immune system. Your immune system is in your entire body. There's no one place that we find your immune system. It's similar with your intuition. There's no one area in the body that houses intuition. The knowing that you have and the trust that you have in that knowing shows up throughout the entire mind, and the entire mind is the entire body. Right? So when we talk about what is intuition, it's beyond your birthright. It's something that is natural to you as a human being. We all have intuition. It's not something outside of ourselves, but the foundation of intuition is trust. And when you say, in our culture, we're not taught to trust our intuition, but we're actually not taught to trust.
In general.
In
Yeah.
general, we're not
Yeah.
taught to trust. And
Yeah.
so, of course, we're going to go outside of ourselves and ask every single person on Facebook what we should do, what we should have for dinner, and where we should go, and whether you should be with this person or not with this person,
Right.
because we have not been taught to trust our own innate knowing. And what I
Exactly.
say to anybody that I start teaching about how to access their intuition is that they are far wiser, so intelligent, incredibly brilliant, far beyond what they believe to be true about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. And it's funny because most of us, it must start when we're very young, right? If anybody listening can remember, when was the first moment that you felt your intuition? Like you just
Hmm.
knew something, and maybe like a parent or somebody said, no, that's not happening. Or, I mean, I think about this with children who see spirits in their room or they're communicating with the other side, and the parents typically will be like, no, that's not real. And so you're immediately being discounted, right away.
That's right. And what we commonly hear as children, even as adults, is it's just your imagination,
Right.
right? It's just your imagination. You're just imagining things. And in that sentence, everything is that everything that the person is feeling gets dismissed
Yeah.
because we undervalue imagination in our culture as well.
Right.
It's again, it's like relegated to childishness, imagining. But here's the point. If you look around your environment, every single thing around you was created because someone thought it. They imagined
Imagined
it.
it.
They said, what would it be like to make I've got these little mushroom lights up here. What would it be like if I made a string of lights that looked like Amanita mushrooms or toadstool mushrooms? And then lo and behold, a company in China is now pumping out all of these strands of mushroom lights.
Exactly.
So yes, it is your imagination. The fact that we can imagine, that's what that's what makes us a different species than other species on the planet, at least as far as we know. Like we don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe dogs and cats do imagine. Maybe butterflies and dragonflies have an imagination. They
Yeah.
might, because a lot
Yeah.
of creatures are very creative. The imagination is forward thinking. When you can imagine something, you're already creating it.
Right.
Right. And then you bring it into the physical world if you do, and then it's manifested,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because everything, you're right, is imagination. And when they want to shut it down, it's almost like only these select people can imagine what we need in our lives. So here's all your products. Here's your, this is what we're going to offer the masses. And let's
Yes.
shut you down from your own imaginative power because
Yeah.
you can't
Right.
create for you. We create for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And here's the thing, it's really hard to control someone who is creative and imaginative, because
Oh,
the
yeah.
moment you tell them what they can't do, they're going to immediately imagine what they can do,
Yes, they are.
right?
Yeah.
And you can't control somebody who's imagining something different than what you've told them is the only truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? This is big because we're so in our heads. Most people are just in the thought, the cyclical thinking, and many people believe that's who they are, right? They're the thinking mind. But when
Hmm.
we're talking about intuition and intuitive power and knowledge, can you explain the difference between these two? Because I think most people are so grabbing a hold of the mind and so connected to it that finding and listening to that intuition is really lost, right? It's almost like it's a completely, it's like they're completely unaware that it's there.
Yes, exactly. When we talk about the thinking versus the feeling, that's where intuition bridges that gap, right?
Mm,
So we don't want to disconnect the thinking from the feeling. They work in tandem with one another. So if I think I can, and then I feel that I can, then I can.
mm-hmm.
And equally, if I think I can't and then I feel that I can't, that's how that
Right.
works, right?
Yeah.
So where we can get tripped up is when monkey mind assumes it knows something better than our holistic or whole body feeling system.
Mm-hmm.
And if we disconnect how we feel from what we're thinking, then it's really challenging for us to trust our own knowing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So the feeling part of tapping into your intuition is, and I was just writing about this morning in my newsletter, as a matter of fact, because I was talking about the skin. Do you remember when we were kids, or I don't know if this happened for you, but when I was in elementary school, there was a taunt, your epidermis is showing.
Your
Did you ever hear that one?
epidermis is
Your
showing.
epidermis is showing. Ha ha, your epidermis is showing. And if you didn't know what your epidermis was, as a kid, your first thought's going to be, "Oh my God, what? What's showing?
What? Right.
Check your zippers. What's
Yeah. Yeah.
right?" Okay, once you know that your epidermis is your skin, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
ha ha. Okay, yes, of course my epidermis is showing, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously. So why this is relevant is that when we start working with our intuition, part of what I teach people to do is to recognize how their body feels, inside or outside or both, when they stumble across something that is the truth or
Hmm.
the right direction for them or in their highest good. For
Right.
me, I get goosebumps. All the hair on my body, everywhere, stands up
Yeah.
the second that we connect, excuse me, the second that we connect with something that is true, true for me, true for you, true for the other person, sometimes true for the world.
Hmm.
And so that's my barometer. That's my intuition indicator that I know that we're on
Yeah.
the right path. We are connecting with something that is true and correct in that moment, right? For some people, it's butterflies. When
Hmm.
you get those butterflies in your solar plexus, like,
Yeah.
ooh, something exciting is happening.
Like our
I,
conversation right now, I have that feeling.
Yes, yeah, because we're connecting to something that's
Yeah.
really energetically juicy and
Hmm.
true, right?
Right.
I had a client that used to yawn whenever we came across something that was true for her. She'd have this big yawn, and at first, I thought,
It's,
"Wow, okay, am I like, is this boring? Am I
well,
keeping
you
you
would, yeah. Are you
awake?"
falling asleep? But
And
she
then I
used it
started,
as an intuitive, like that was her sign.
that was her side, although she didn't realize it at the time
Huh.
until I made the connection because I watched my reaction to something that I shared with her about what was coming in for me intuitively about her, and all of my hairs on my arm went up, and she yawned at the same time, and I had that aha moment. It's like,
Oh,
oh, I know what's happening.
yeah.
You're feeling the truth of it. And that yawn, like a yawn is an amazing mechanism. Every creature does it, which is really cool. If your dog yawns, you'll yawn, right? And there's
Yeah.
that connection
Yeah. What
factor.
is that? When somebody else is yawning, you're yawning. It's like contagious.
It is. Studies have been done. Now, I'm going to start yawning now because we're even talking about it. But what, but what a yawn does is it brings in a deep breath and then it expels a deep breath,
It's
right?
like a cleansing breath.
A cleansing breath. So that's another way. I mean, now we're going into how you connect with your intuition. Um, that's another way to connect with your intuition is through your breath.
Hmm.
Get yourself calm. All right. Like we just between you and I talking right now, we created this huge vibration. We raised the energy in both of our in
Yeah.
our rooms. You could feel it. But
Yeah.
as soon as I did the yawn, can you feel?
Yeah. Just simmer down a bit.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. So now we could tap really deeply into our intuition. If it
Yeah.
wasn't something that a person was familiar with, taking that moment to ground themselves, to put their feet on the ground, to take a deep breath, to calm the down.
Right. The electrical side of it.
Yeah,
That's how I would describe it. Yeah.
that's right. And then ask the question.
Hmm.
Right? Because the next step in all this is okay, let's say you finally connected with your intuition, you believe it's something that's real, you've got a sense of how to work with it. What do you do with it?
That's
Right?
the other.
Why is it important
Hmm.
that we trust our intuition? So you ask a question of yourself, of your higher self, of your knowing, of your soul group, or whoever, God, goddess, spaghetti monster, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Like
Yeah.
you just put the question out there and you sit and you let the answer come in. And it's not going to be monkey mind that's giving you the answer.
No.
And the answer is going to come in as an immediate, oh, of course, I should be drinking more water. Right?
Yeah.
The question is, what can I do for my health? I guarantee 100% of us should probably be drinking more water. It could be something really simple like that, right?
Yeah. I'm going to have a sip of my tea right now.
Me,
I
I'm
should
going to have
say that
some of my
maybe I should
glass of water.
hydrate.
Yeah.
Thanks for that reminder, Megan. Well, I always describe intuition and the mental thing too as, at least for me personally, this is just speaking from my own experience, is that intuition just hits you. Like it's
Mhm.
just like a deep knowing, sometimes out of nowhere. And sometimes it's things you didn't want to know. I have that where it's like, oh, but I know that it's true, you know?
Mhm.
Or if you get feelings immediately, I feel like the intuition is so strong that most of us get a very strong hit right away about any given situation you're in. But let's
Yeah.
say you're meeting somebody for the first time,
Mm.
sometimes you just feel a certain way about someone you don't even know and you
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
And you might say, there's something not sitting well with me about this being in this person's presence.
Mhm.
But everyone else seems to think they're perfectly fine and wonderful. And then come to find out later, you might find out some things and you're like, oh, that's why I was picking that up. Can you
Yes.
explain that too? Do you
Yeah.
find that in your own life or people you work with that the hunch is usually spot on?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two things with that. First of all, it's your BS meter, right? It's
Yeah.
it's also your narcissist detector.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, interesting.
narcissists are very good at hiding behind, um, what's the word I was looking for? Like a genuine presence. They're very good at being very friendly and outgoing, and people just fall in love with them right away. And he's just such a great guy. What do you mean you get a funny feeling about him? But if your intuition is strong and you've been working with your intuition and you've learned to trust it because you've made a few mistakes along the way when you didn't trust it, you're going to know, and it won't matter that 100 people in the room think that he's the best guy on the planet. You're going to trust that there's something a little bit off about that person. And so you're going to be a little more cautious in your interactions with him or her.
100%. Yeah.
Narcissists can come in both flavors,
Yeah.
all three. all flavors. There's,
They seem to be all over the place too.
yeah, there seems to be a bit of a pandemic of narcissism right now.
I know. There's a lot of that.
I think it's contagious. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because it's like, and I don't know how you explain this, but from a deeper understanding of what's actually happening in the exchange of information, let's say that's basically what we're doing, right? We're picking up information in the field.
Exactly.
And I feel like it's a the information that I would receive or that you would receive from someone is not matching what's coming out, like you said, of their BS meter out of their mouth.
Hmm.
That
That's
seems
right.
to be what there's a discrepancy in the field. What I'm picking up is not what's coming out.
That's right. That's right.
And you can't prove it. I can't, all I can do is just, it doesn't, something's off.
Something's off, and it's
Yeah.
important to learn to trust that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to completely turn your back on this individual, especially if you can't. Let's say you have to work with them, or they're a family member, or there's some reason that they have to be in your world. But you can be mindful of that intuitive feeling about them, and you can then act accordingly to make sure that you are keeping your energy field sacred,
Mm-hmm.
and only inviting those things into your energy field that are for your highest good.
Right.
So there's an exercise I want to share. Can I share it with you?
Yeah, let's do that because
Right.
that's what we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a powerful but really simple exercise, or simple but really powerful, however you want to put it. It's basically called shields up.
Mm-hmm.
When you know that you're going to be interacting with somebody who you get that no feeling from, you simply say in your mind, shields up. And in that moment, you are creating or connecting to this beautiful egg shaped energy field that surrounds you on all sides, like you've stepped into a bubble. And this bubble is about 2 feet from you in every direction. That's the general size of a healthy energy field, is 2 feet from the heart center all the way
Mm-hmm.
around. This field is mirrored on the outside, so that anything that anyone tries to give you that isn't in your highest good and isn't theirs to give you gets reflected back to them energetically,
Mm.
because it's theirs. It's not yours. And they're
Right.
trying to give it to you because they don't want it.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept it.
Right.
You can say, no, thank you. And equally, this beautiful bubble, and think of it like when you blow bubbles, that iridescent rainbowy, that's the
Yeah.
color of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it's moving. It's not solid. It's moving. It's your aura,
Yeah.
essentially.
Very fluid. Yeah.
Very fluid, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be mirrored on the inside as well.
Mm.
Because sometimes, unconsciously and without intention, or consciously and with intention, we will send out something to somebody else to deal with. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Get away
Right?
from me.
That's right. We'll make someone else responsible for our well-being.
Yes.
Say, have to look after me. I don't have to look after me. So if you're really conscious and you're really doing your work and you're wanting to take responsibility for yourself, you can mirror it on the inside too,
Yeah.
so that what's yours is yours, stays yours.
Well, you bring up a really great technique because for people who are very sensitive, and I don't mean, oh, I'm so sensitive emotionally. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm a sensitive person to other people's energies.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who's gone through anything like that or deals with that, if it's something that is so overwhelming to you, you start, like you said, taking on everything like a sponge, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
a mess, right?
Yes,
And you think a lot that it's you.
indeed.
This is all me, and there's something wrong with me. It's now affected me so deeply and physically and all the other things that can happen that I think people don't realize that you do have tools to
Mm-hmm.
use to make sure that you don't take on, you don't have to. You simply don't have to. And if you're good at it too, you can just allow things to move through you and it just doesn't affect you. But that's a different level of, uh, I feel like that's another level of intuition and knowing. But
It's another level of training. Yes.
yes, it's another,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's the water off a duck's back technique,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. But
Right?
what you're explaining is something anybody can do. I mean, anybody can.
Anybody can do it. Exactly. It's free. It's your energy field.
Yeah.
You do not have to allow anything into your energy field that you don't want.
Right.
When you use these words, only that which is for my highest good, you're creating an intention. You're also creating a boundary. Now,
Hmm.
when we say for my highest good, it doesn't necessarily mean that only beautiful, lovely, wonderful, bubbly things are going to come into your energy field. Because if you've stated for my highest good, it might be that for your highest good is going to be an experience that's going to be challenging and triggering for you because there's something there for you to heal or to learn from, or a way that you can step into the world in a bigger, more potent way. So it isn't always going to be easy, but
No.
you say with ease, right? So that is for my highest good with ease.
Hmm.
And then that helps you navigate with grace all of the
The
chaos
yes.
and the BS that people are going to try to throw at you.
Which is
Right. And
nonstop. Yeah. It's the
yeah,
world.
and it's
Yeah.
not that they're doing it necessarily on purpose. I mean, in some cases they are, but oftentimes they don't even realize that they're doing it because that's what the way they were brought up.
Yeah.
Right. You blame and shame. That's how you get through life.
Right. Well, and maybe you can talk about this too. People don't have to open their mouth and say anything for you to be picking up intuition and information.
Yeah.
You could be around, and this is what gets tricky for people who are sensitive and may not understand what's happening,
Hmm.
is you get around certain environments or certain people, they're not really saying anything, but you're
Yeah.
all of a sudden feeling an overwhelming something, and it may
Yeah.
affect you. So how would you deal with that? Would you do the same thing or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, and I would do it preventatively. Like as a high, like an energy hygiene maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I'm driving through downtown or I have the unfortunate I have to be in a mall, which
I
I
know,
can't
I know. Or an airport.
or an airport, or yeah, big group of people where there's lots of energy
Yes.
flowing around, I will say my shield's up. My shields are
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
Right? And I can almost feel sometimes like ping ping ping.
Yeah.
People we judge all the time. We judge each
Yeah.
other, we judge ourselves all the time. So if I'm walking through the mall and I'm skipping along and I'm super happy, which I usually am, not because I'm in a mall though, it's just my general personality, that
Yeah.
might piss someone else off. Like
Yeah.
that might really piss them off. Like, why is she so happy? Why is she smiling so much? Rah, rah,
Right.
rah. When they do that, when they think that, they're throwing that at me. They don't know they're doing that, but that's what's happening,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm not aware of that, I might, by the time I leave the mall, just be dragging my feet and feeling absolutely sluggish because I haven't done a little bit of hygiene on my energy field.
Yeah.
I've picked up somebody else's stuff that they've been throwing at me, like slinging mud.
Yeah.
But in that moment, if I have that recognition of, oh, right, I've just left the mall and I feel like I've been, I don't know, hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, shields up. And boom, all the stuff that was stuck to the outside of my energy field gets flung back to the person who threw it at me because
Yeah.
it's theirs.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that to be mean to them, but it's
No.
theirs. And if they want to advance, if their soul wants to advance, if they want to grow and all the other things we come here to do, they have to deal with their stuff.
Yeah. It's not my job or responsibility really to do that for other
Exactly.
people. Right.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
My job is to be the best version of me. And when I am the best version of me, I send out a ripple effect. We all do. We send out a ripple effect. And the people around me will either accept that ripple of the goodness that is me in that moment and allow it to permeate them in some way and integrate into themselves in some way that makes them feel better, or
Yeah.
they'll say no, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So my job is just to be the best me and trust that that will have an effect on other people in a positive way should they want it.
Yeah.
Should they say yes to it, consciously
Yeah.
or unconsciously.
Or unconsciously. Right.
Yeah.
Can you speak to, I know you said you do is 3 levels of intuitive development. Is that something I saw on your
Mhm,
workshops?
mhm.
Do you want to go into
Yes.
that? What the
Yeah, let's
different
talk
levels
about
are?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the 3 levels of intuitive wisdom.
Okay.
And the first one we already touched on, which is when I said you are far wiser and more brilliant than you give yourself credit for. 100% of the population, well, 99.999% of the population.
Let me clarify that.
There may be one or two people on the planet who actually do know how amazing they are. And I'm not suggesting that I'm necessarily one of them. I have some idea, but I don't know necessarily how much. But Most people are wandering around the world not aware of how much they already know.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first level of intuitive wisdom is tapping into your own infinite knowledge of yourself and who you have been throughout time. We're going to go into the understanding that we live more than one lifetime, whether you believe it or not. It's
Yeah.
true. So, maybe explore it and have some fun with it. So, every life you've ever lived, every life you are currently living, because there are concurrent lifetimes. That's another podcast if we talk about
Yeah.
past
Oh,
lives
I just did
sometime.
a show on quantum immortality and the timeline switch and all that.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Multiple, yeah, like living in parallel universe, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
right. Yeah.
sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but
No, no, no. That's okay. That's okay. It's all that like big brain blowing stuff, right?
I
Um,
know.
and then all of your future lifetimes, because all time is simultaneous. So
Right.
if we want to believe that all time is simultaneous, then by extension, every experience you've ever had, are having, or will have is existing already, which means that every solution to every problem that you've created for yourself already exists.
Right.
It's about tapping into it,
Does
right?
that
So
mean it could be solved at once as well? So you
yeah,
have, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Now we have free will. Like when we come into these corporeal bodies, there's a density to our existence, and also we have free will. We get to make choices. But when you're presented with a choice and you're not sure what to do, what I would suggest at the first level is, rather than going to Facebook and asking all your Facebook friends what you should buy or who you should date, ask yourself first, because you've already done it. And
right.
to do that, it's helpful to have an understanding of the chakra system, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to. If you're willing to accept that above your head, about 2 or 3 feet above your head, at the top of that beautiful sphere that we were just talking about, there's an energy center called your eighth chakra, or your soul chakra. And that soul chakra holds all of your memories, past, present, and future. So sitting in that moment of deep breath, okay, I'm calm. I'm going to ask the question, what should I have for dinner tonight? And immediately I'm going to hear bolognese. Awesome. I'm going to have spaghetti for dinner tonight. That's great. Like it can be as simple as that. Or it could be some huge, profound thing. Do I take this job? Do I marry this person?
Yeah.
The information is already up there, right? And because we've got happen tracks, we already have made the decision in either direction and have had the experience of it in either direction. And then at the end of the day and at the end of our lives, all paths lead back to us at the end of the day and at the end of our lives.
Yeah.
And I know that's a lot. And so I'm just going to invite people to just kind of consider it as a possibility, that
Right.
this is something
Yeah.
that we can do. So that's the first level, is learning to trust yourself. And I don't mean to make that sound like dismissive, because it's not necessarily easy. But
No.
again, it's practice.
Yeah.
I can trust myself. I have the knowledge. And then you can go onto Facebook and say, does anyone have a great bolognese recipe? That's an appropriate thing to ask on Facebook.
That's the order in which it should occur.
Exactly. I've made up my mind. Now, how do I do it? And then you can ask for advice about how to do it, right?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up real quick before you go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Children do this a lot. I know with my children, if you ask them, what do you want? And like one of my daughters would say, well, what do you think I should have? And I said, I'm asking you, no, what do you want? It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what I think. Yeah.
That's right.
Trying to put the ball in her court. Like you can make this decision for yourself. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And decision making in and of itself is an art form that we are not really taught. Well, we learn how to not make decisions through our families, and then through what we observe and experience when we get into school, where, like you said at the very beginning, we give over our authority,
Mm-hmm.
or we give over our empowerment, our sense of self, we give over our sovereignty
Yeah.
to the teacher, to the principal, to the adults in our lives. And we do it because that's what we're taught to do.
Yeah. That's the way it is here. Yeah.
That's the way it is. And
We're
then
not
as a
living in that intuitive like universe where they're facilitating young intuitive people. Like, wouldn't it be great at school if you took a class and you
yeah,
taught it and it said, learn how to get in touch with your intuition, and that was part of the curriculum? But you know
wouldn't
what
that
the
be
problem? The problem with that is that all these kids would be drilling the teacher with questions constantly, and they'd be just like bombarded. I think it would be interesting, but
It would be interesting. That was me, by the way, as a kid. Teacher, teacher,
yeah,
but wait, but what about this?
I
Yeah.
know why.
Yeah. Why? Exactly. Why? And
Yeah,
my report cards would come back with Megan needs more focus in her focus.
she needs to listen to me.
Exactly. Okay. So let's suppose that you believe me when I say you're more brilliant than you realize, and you're willing to tap in and find your answers and listen to your answers. But also because you have free will, and as a species, we can be quite stubborn. And maybe you don't actually want to do the thing that you know you need to do or should do or would be best for you to do. Then we move into the second level of intuitive wisdom, which is when there is an external energy that can help guide you. So for some people that could be a spirit guide, others might call them angels. Some
Hmm.
people refer to it as your higher self.
Yeah.
It's an energy outside of yourself that isn't you, but that is connected to you energetically through past lives or through love relationships or as a mentor.
Hmm.
Now, their job, and when I say they, I mean, again, like people think of an angel or a spirit guide, something solid, a solid person. They can be beams of light. They
I was going to say, yeah, it could be just the vast presence or whatever you feel. Yeah.
exactly. And people say, well, they'll show themselves to you in a way that you're comfortable with. So it might look like your great grandma Maud, or it might look like,
Yeah.
Azrael or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So um, when you stray enough away from the path that you wrote for yourself for this lifetime, your soul's journey, your human journey, because we have free will. And it's really important that you get nudged back onto the path that you wrote for yourself. That's when you can connect with these other energies and ask for help. And on some occasions, they may intervene,
Hmm.
even though you're not necessarily consciously asking for help, because there's an importance in the life story that you wrote for yourself when you came here.
Yeah.
Okay. And some people are really good at tapping in and connecting with these spirit guides or angels or beams of energy and asking questions of them. What you will learn very quickly, though, is that they're not going to give you an answer
At least one that
because
you
they
want.
yeah, because they know that you know.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when people say to me, I've tried talking to my spirit guides and they don't talk back to me, I say, well, what are you asking?
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking what I should have for dinner. You know that already. You're going to have bolognese. Go get a good recipe, right?
Yeah. They don't care what you eat for dinner, by the way.
They really don't care what you eat for
Just
dinner.
eat it. Yeah.
Exactly. Unless it's really bad for you, in which case you
Right.
might
Yeah.
start getting those nudges, right? So those nudges show up as repetitive thinking, where you feel like, dang it, I know I should really make
Mhm.
my own bolognese sauce. We're just going to go with this bolognese sauce. Why not? Or this bolognese meal. Um, I should really make my own because then I know what's going in it. But I don't want to. I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy some pre-made stuff. But even as you're in the store, you're feeling this nudge to go to the produce instead and get some tomatoes instead of going and getting the can, right?
Yeah.
We've all had that feeling, and let's take it a little bit further. Like, I really shouldn't marry Joe. I don't want to marry Joe. But we've put out all the invitations and
Yeah.
everybody's coming, and he's really not a bad guy. But
Mm.
I just feel like I shouldn't marry Joe. Now, again, free will. So let's say you marry Joe, and the first 4 or 5 years are great ish. But then that nudge shows up again, and you start imagining what it would be like to not be married to Joe and all
Hmm.
the things you could be doing. So, those kinds of communications, those are your second level of intuitive wisdom.
Right.
It's a little bit of you and it's a little bit of them. It's a little bit country, it's a little bit rock and roll, right? You're working with them.
Hmm.
They're nudging you gently, giving you indications. They're putting, information in front of you or helping you meet somebody that is going to give
Hmm.
you the right? So
Yeah.
that's the second level. But let's say you're just really stubborn, and here come all my goosebumps.
I was going to say like the majority of the population.
Yes, and when I describe this third level, been there, done that, just so the
Yeah.
audience knows
Speaking
that
from
I,
experience. Yeah.
yes, speaking from experience. When you insist on not listening to yourself, to your higher self, to the team that's around you energetically. That's when the universe steps in. That's the wake up call.
Yeah.
So the third level of intuitive wisdom is the big reveal. It's the big deal. It's when the carpet gets whipped out from underneath you. You've spun around 360 degrees. And when you look up again, you have no idea where you are. You've
Hmm.
been literally hit by the car, hit by the divorce, hit by the disease or the illness or the injury.
Yeah.
Something so big and so impactful that you cannot ignore it.
Right. A major crisis that makes you go literally inward. It's leading you there. And it might take you a really long time, even then, to still find it. But yeah, it's usually these earth shattering major life moments that wake people up, or at least attempt to.
That's right. And the thing about these moments is that they are written in your story by yourself before you came here. This is what I believe.
Mhm.
We write these things in. So when I had my car accident, that car accident, I wrote it into my life journey. And when I got to that place in my life and had the car accident, it could have been much more severe if I hadn't already started to kind of slowly, just a little bit, maybe come back to my path. It
Hmm.
didn't have to be hugely life shattering. It was significant enough that I ended up with spiral whiplash and a concussion.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy who hit me, he and his airbag went off, and it was jarring.
Yeah.
In and of itself, though, it was the precursor to the bigger wake up call
Yeah.
because it positioned me to be at home, not being able to work, and then experiencing a reconnection with an old love.
Mm.
And
So
it was
each
it
thing's
was
leading you. Yeah.
things leading you. So you can have a number of sort of, I mean, a car crash is not minor, but ending a marriage is major.
Hmm.
And the experience in the car crash for my health and well-being and what showed up in my marriage because I was no longer the Wonder Woman that I had been,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
Cracks started to show. Well, actually, chasms. Cracks were already there. Chasms started to show up, right?
Yeah.
And then over a period of years, 2 or 3 years, I had the opportunity to do my work and to really look at, okay, well, what is it that I want? And, you know, Joe and I, maybe that's not his real name, but, protecting the
Yeah. I understand.
somewhat innocent. We've grown together as much as we could, and we've learned as much from each other, and we've birthed these beautiful daughters, but we're going in different directions now,
Hmm. Yeah. And
right?
that you were able to see that
I
afterward.
was able to see that, and it became part of my body of work as well because I was living it. So all these things that I'm sharing with people, with my students, with the audience, with you, these are lived experiences
Yeah.
as I've grown, and I will continue to grow as chaos happens and good and bad experiences happen because they're just experiences.
Right.
A wake-up call can be an amazing, joyful. It can be falling in love can be the wake-up call that
Hmm.
totally changes your life, or getting that promotion, or suddenly having that opportunity to be on Oprah or whatever it is. That is also a wake up call because you're
Hmm.
being asked to say yes to something that is bigger
Yeah.
than you ever imagined it
Yeah.
could be. Yeah.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, of
Did
course.
you ever have any intuition that your marriage would end prior to like the accident and everything? Were there signs maybe that you saw or felt and just didn't just I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, so go ahead and share.
Certainly, yes, in the marriage, there were lots of red flags that I could have paid attention to sooner than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention. Well, I did pay attention to them, but I didn't use them as markers for change.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
knew they were there. I could see the behaviors. I could see the way I was being treated. I could see the way I was allowing myself to be treated.
Yeah.
But there's always hope because I didn't marry him with the expectation that I would leave him one day. I married him expecting to be with him for the rest of my life.
Right.
However, when we were in university, um, and he and I were together when we were in university, I remember having this wow, like light bulb aha moment. He and I were walking through the park, and I turned to him and I said, wow, we're going to be together for quite a long time. And then we're not going to be together for quite a long time.
Hmm.
And then in some way or another, we're going to reconcile and we will be friends again. And I was 19 when I had this revelation.
Wow. And you said this to him?
And I said
What did
this
he
to him.
say? He's like, what? Yeah.
Well, he knew before I knew how powerful I am.
Yeah.
He always knew.
Yeah.
And in my experience of him, he did a really good job of making sure I was not aware of how powerful I am.
Oh, interesting. I was going to say, was there some part of him that was probably afraid of that?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, he knew before I did that this time was coming where we were going to go in opposite directions because he said to me, I can see that you're growing and you're expanding and you're going on a journey and I don't think I can come with you.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Not everybody can accept the person that's changing.
Yeah.
And it fizzles the relationship or it changes the relationship, right? Either one.
It does. And he said to me, you're not the woman I married. And I was confused by that. I was like, well, that's
Yeah.
should be a good thing. I don't think I should be 27 for the rest of my life. Like I want to actually grow.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And so
Yeah.
he knew. That didn't mean that he accepted it in any
Yeah.
graceful way. But yeah, so I had that knowing. And so when the love showed up that wasn't him, then I knew,
Mhm.
oh, that premonition I had when I was 19,
Yeah.
this is how it unfolds.
Yeah.
How it is that we're going to reconcile at some point down the road in the future and be friends again, I don't know, but I
Mhm.
trust that that will happen and it will be a good thing because,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we were two people doing the best that we could with what we knew at the time.
Right. Well, there obviously was love there. I mean, you had children and
Oh
yeah.
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 Yeah, there was a
There was
lot
a
of love
purpose.
and
Hmm.
we were really good friends and we were fun together. We had a lot of fun together.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, there was toxicity,
Yeah.
and we did what we could, and I tried so hard for so long to make it okay
Yeah.
until I couldn't anymore, and I knew that. And
Yeah.
then there was the process, and that's what I share. That's the story that I share in the Heart's Journey.
Right. Because I
That's
did
where
some
those
reading on
oracle
that.
cards come from,
Yeah.
is
They're
that
beautiful.
journey. Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
great book, by the way, everybody. The Heart's Journey. And she's got all these really great cards, and you can just pick one, and they really light up your day. So that I do enjoyed reading. I haven't read all of it. I did read the whole journey though that you were on about your experience, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And I'm sure so many people share that same type of experience, right? Where the
yes.
person that you thought you would be with forever is not the person that's going to be there forever, you know?
That's right. And
Yeah.
it's a huge grieving process when that realization
Oh,
hits.
yeah. It's like a death. Yeah.
It is. Absolutely, it's a death and it takes time. And so for anybody who's going through that, whatever stage that you're at in that journey, and whether you're male or female, just know that it will be okay. You
Yeah.
will survive it, and you are not the only person on the planet going through it right now, even though
No.
it might feel like no one else has ever experienced this. They have, not exactly like you're doing it, but they have. And
Yeah.
so that's where you can reach out and share those
Mhm.
stories and realize, okay, there are ways to navigate this and to do it with integrity and to do it with as much honoring of the process as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the ego's so funny. It just loves to say that it's the only person in the world who's had this experience, right? I mean, that's a
Well,
common theme of our mind. I'm the only one suffering from this.
yes, no one can possibly know what I'm going through. And in the moment it feels like that
It
because
does.
honestly, you're like this, right? You've got your
Yeah.
blinders on and you're going, nope, 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 there's nothing else in the world but me.
Yeah.
Because when we get into that pain, it's easy to fall into it and to forget that
Oh,
in
yeah.
fact we are connected to
Yeah.
everything and everyone around us. And the sooner you can remember that, the less time you'll spend in that collapsed state of
Right. Well, in that collapsed state, you're totally disconnected from the intuition. You're sort of in this suffering. I want to wallow into my suffering. I want to disconnect from receiving too, right? Information. I mean, it
Mhm.
seems to be that path is of when you're very depressed. I've been there too. And it's just like, no, nobody knows how I feel. And it's simply not the case.
It's
Suffering is suffering too, right? No matter what
yes.
the form, no matter what the form it takes,
Mhm.
the feeling of it is the same, no matter what you're doing on
It
the
is.
outside.
Yes, and here's a point that I want to make to this. In our culture, especially, there seems to be this idea that we grow when we suffer. You know, suffering makes us stronger, and the good Protestant work ethic and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To that, I will say no, because exactly what we just said, when you're in suffering, when you've collapsed into that grief and you're doing this and you've
Yeah.
got your blinders on, you're not learning anything.
Yeah. No.
You learn about your experience when you're on the other side of it, and you have the capacity to see the bigger picture and say, oh, that's why that had to happen. I see now. Okay,
Yeah.
now I can learn from it. But in the moment of the suffering, you're not learning anything. You're just
No.
existing in that moment of pain. When you learn the best is when you are in a state of joy. Your capacity to learn when you're excited about something, when you're really connected to it and there's people around you who are also on that journey and they're also learning, that as a human being is your greatest point of learning and
Right.
absorbing and growing. And so strive to be in a life of joy if what you want is to be learning and growing and expanding yourself and your soul.
Well, and you just said something interesting there about when you're in that state of joy. It also, when you're there, you're now excited, almost curious about why you were having the blinders on. So once you come out of it, like you said, when you're in suffering, you're in literal hell. That's all that you
Mm-hmm.
know or think or
Mm-hmm.
believe, too. But
Yeah.
once you step out and you get curious and you see it from a different perspective, then you can look and see it in a totally different way.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. One of the biggest things that can shut down your intuition is regret.
Mm,
If you are ruminating and agitating about things you wish you could have done, should have done differently, you're not tapped into your intuition at all.
right.
When you look at the things that you've done in your life and you can say each one of these things has value and purpose and is a part of who I am today, and I wouldn't change a thing, then you're connected to your intuition.
Hmm. That typically happens too if you're a person who's had a lot of crap go down in your life. And then you've realized that, and this happens as you're older, right?
Hmm.
You
Yes.
start realizing that everything is leading me to the next thing, good or bad, it's irrelevant. This is a
Hmm.
stepping stone, and I'm using my intuition as a guide. It's taking me there,
That's right.
and you sort of detach from that it needs to be a certain way.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And you trust. You
Yeah.
start to really build up that trust muscle that these things are happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And you can make up what the reason is. It doesn't matter. It's as long as you have that understanding that there's a reason. Have it make the things that have happened in your life to you be meaningful. Even the
Hmm.
bad stuff, make it be meaningful, give it meaning. And now you have a totally different relationship with it. And it's not defining who you are. You're simply you're it's a part of you. It's a part of your story,
Yeah.
but it's not who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in your levels of development there, you just described trust being the first one. And then
Hmm.
you said kind of when your guidance is kind of pushing you and you're creating this back and forth. Or three is that, life-changing crisis that happens. But now what it seems to me is that ideally all those things are leading you to the trusting, that just trusting the intuition and you're at a place of I kind of call it maybe like divine flow, where you're just moving with where you're going. You're still listening, but
Hmm.
everything happening in your life is taking you to the next place.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's like being on a river.
Yeah.
I and think of our childhood as the where the river starts, and it's usually a little trickle somewhere up in the mountain, right? And it comes down the mountain, easy peasy, no problem. But then you hit the rapids, and the rapids are, anywhere from the age of 7 to the age of 25 or 35. There's a lot going on in those years.
Yeah.
But then you get into the delta and there's this nice wide river and there's all these places and channels you can go and there's all these opportunities that you can have and you just get to flow down and then you get to the ocean and you die and you move into the next cycle
Hmm.
of that divine flow.
Right. Whatever's next. Yeah.
Whatever's next.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever's next.
So you brought up dying, and I know that before we had chatted here, we discussed this. I did a show last week on this new documentary that's out on Netflix called "Don't Die," and it's like crazy. I mean, I watch it and I'm just blown away at the level. I don't know if you watched it, but
I did watch it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So the level of he did say this, and I mentioned it in the last show, is I'm going to take myself out of my mind and I'm only going to listen to my body. But what he's really saying is I'm going to have AI and all the data spit out what I need to do exactly when I need to do it, all
Yeah.
the food and supplements I need to take, when they are, all the treatments, the technological treatments, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but it seemed like a whole lot of transhumanism going on, like this
Yeah.
agenda to merge the person with the computer. Am I wrong, or did you see that in there? It's just
There's so,
crazy.
yeah, there's so much to unpack in that documentary.
Oh, yeah.
I would have to watch it 2 or 3 times, although I don't really want to put the energy into
I know.
doing
I don't want to give it any more energy than I
it.
need.
Um, wow. All I can say is, wow, what is going on in his mind? What have his life experiences been that has taken him to this place? And how is it that he is able to tap into this fear of death to the extent that he now has this huge movement of people around him wearing "Don't Die" t-shirts
Oh,
and
yeah.
rallying around him and taking all the things that he's taking.
I know.
My question to him, if I ever had the chance to talk to him, would be, what are you so afraid of?
Yeah. That was
What do
my,
you think
yeah.
happens when we die? And even if what you believe is nothing happens, we're dead, we just become worm food. What's so wrong with that? Because if you look around the world, that's what everything does.
Everything does. Yeah.
Everything does. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know about you, but when you go to sleep at night, if you've ever had a night of sleep where you literally are comatose, you have no recollection of anything, maybe you don't recall any dreams. I mean, it wasn't a problem. I was just,
That's right. You
I was
still
just
woke up
out
the
and
next day.
I wasn't complaining about anything. I didn't have to do anything. But you know what I
Yes,
mean? Like it's this,
that's right.
you have no awareness of it. So I don't know what the fear is either.
It is interesting. And we've certainly over the last 5 years, we've seen a huge surge of fear around death. And maybe
Yeah.
it's about the dying part of it. And that I think is more what people connect to in terms of the fear. They
Hmm.
might not be so afraid of what comes next. Maybe they are, but it's more the process. I often hear people say, well, I don't want to have a painful death.
Yeah.
So we have made up here now, which is medically assisted
Oh,
death,
yeah.
right? So it's medically assisted suicide. And
Suicide.
it's controversial. It's very controversial.
I bet it is. Yeah.
I've held a friend's hand as she had it done
Yeah.
to her, and that was really quite something.
Yeah.
It's being offered almost like candy to kids in some instances, and that I have a problem with.
Totally.
And our government is wanting to make it available to people with mental health issues now. There's been a
Mm,
lot of pushback from the medical establishment on that one because that's such a gray area.
it
And
is.
how do you know? Like my
Yeah.
family member right now, who's in a medically or a medicine toxicity, she wants to die, but she's not cognitively functioning. And when she's not having medication toxicity, she doesn't want to die. She wants to live as long as she can.
Right.
Right. So, and then at what point does a person have autonomy over their own death? In the same way that we have birth doulas, we have death doulas.
Yeah.
I feel like a person should be able to make that decision for themselves.
Right.
Um, anyway, we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole
I
here.
know. That's okay.
But
Well, it's a big topic.
it's a big topic, and yeah, the whole idea of like I don't want to die. Well, but you came here to live, and part of living is dying. So maybe do some work around your beliefs around dying and death and pain and vulnerability and all of that to come to peace
Yeah.
with this process.
Well, what concerned me about it is he's got, a massive following, and, we could go on a topic about who pays for all that. But anyway,
Hmm.
it's like who's pushing the agenda. But you've got all
Hmm.
these people following him, and there is a huge movement and conferences around the world that are talking about the post-human era. They're talking
Hmm.
about all this scientific research on the post-human era. And I'm thinking, is anyone waking up to listen to what that post-human, like what are they getting at? And it's almost as if there's this going to be this slow push to accept all of this technological merging, probably with
Hmm.
therapies we've not even seen, that
Hmm.
change the human being, like literally trying to transform it into, like the guy's saying, to never die, which I don't think would ever happen, but
No, I don't
we're
think
going to
so
die.
either.
I know. I'm kind of just saying, like, why are you even putting money into this?
Well, that's just it. And the money piece is really an important part of it. He's a
Yeah.
billionaire
Yeah. And he's making money on the supplements.
and he's
He
making
owns the
money on the supplement.
company.
Yes, he does. And all of his cronies, like when they showed the picture of the other billionaires who were all gung ho about this, you
Oh, yeah.
recognized a few of those faces.
Yeah.
What what's going on here? It's not going to be you and I.
No, no. They try to make it sound like this is going to be for all of mankind. I'm like, no, it isn't.
Let's bring it back to intuition, right?
Yes.
Intuition is a distinctively human attribute or trait, right? My dog isn't intuitive. She does what she does. She's a dog. She's doing her dog self,
Yeah.
right? But she's not making decisions. Do I go left or do I go right? It's
No.
like, how do I get my treat, right? That's my
Yeah.
beautiful dog.
Yeah.
I, as a human being, get to make decisions all the time.
Yeah.
Do I go left or do I go right? When I tap into my feeling of do I go left or do I go right, and I trust that feeling and I follow that feeling, then I also trust that something good is going to come from having trusted that decision and gone right instead of left or left instead of right. I'm not partial to whichever
Yeah.
way it is, you know.
Yeah.
And then if I if I fill my body with chemicals and toxins and bad food and medications that are synthetic, I will lose touch with my intuition because I will lose touch with how my body feels.
Mm-hmm.
It will numb out. I'll be
Love it.
numbed out.
Yeah.
And then I won't be connected to my intuition. And then I won't be able to think critically and ask important questions
Yeah.
like, is this good for me?
Right.
And base
Well,
my decisions on whether or not it's good for me.
yeah. Yeah. The better that you treat your body, because the body is feeling information for sure.
Hmm.
And when you get into the feelings of really heightened intuition, it's very electrical, at least how I
Hmm.
personally experience, maybe not for everyone, but it can be very intense too. And if
Hmm.
you're not used to it, let's say you have um, maybe the body is in a state, it's deadened a bit, right? Or you've
Okay.
been storing a lot of waste or whatever, and you start cleaning up and really shifting your diet, and you will start feeling a power that is almost foreign to you because it's not familiar. And
Yeah.
that can, depending on the intensity of it, can be a little shocking, like what's happening. But the more
Hmm.
and more you get comfortable with it, it's like that creative thing, like we talked about at the beginning. It leads you to this very imaginative place where now you're just, you're receiving and you're creating, and it's all working so well. It's such a beautiful thing. So, can you talk a little bit more about maybe the classes that you offer in intuition or the workshops? Do you have anything coming soon? Do you do this regularly? Like, can you let the listeners know what you have?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I have a classroom on a platform called Learn It Live, and we're doing a spring symposium, and I'm going to be doing a free I guess, webinar on past lives
Hmm.
or past life exploration for wellness and healing. So that's coming up in April, and if you go visit my Learn It Live, you'll see it there, and you can sign up for it. And then there's another course on Learn It Live, which is all about manifesting, the 8 power steps to manifesting. And or is that one on there? No, that one's not on there yet. It's the intuition one that's on there. There is one on intuition on there, and more to come. I'm doing a live chakra journey here in Victoria. It's an in-person one, and it's a 9-week class down at one of our metaphysical shops every Sunday. And so we'll be looking at a chakra a week, and the
Oh, cool.
students will be immersing themselves in all the aspects of that chakra. So, wearing the color,
Hmm.
eating foods that are connected to that chakra, doing the chakra clearing and balancing exercises. And that is also then going to be transferred on to Learn It Live. So, coming up, if you connect with me through my newsletter, I always share the various workshops and things that I'm doing, and I'm moving a lot of them online now
Yeah.
to be able to share them with a larger audience.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, but if you're local to me and you're in the Victoria, Vancouver area in Canada, you can come and see me personally for these classes too, because I love teaching and talking in front of
Oh,
live
I was going
audiences.
to say in person is always great when you can do that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
But
that's really,
as we've demonstrated here, we can also connect energetically
oh, I was,
across distance.
yeah, it doesn't stop the energy flow just because you're on a screen. That's for sure. I
Yes.
find that just talking about certain people and you might feel a certain thing. You don't have to be in their presence. That's definitely true.
Hmm.
So, Well, is there anything else you might want to share with us today as we wrap up the show about anything about intuition, anything that comes to mind about just reminding people of how to get in touch or whatever's coming to you
From my intuition.
from your own intuition?
You know what? I cannot say it enough times about how amazingly brilliant and incredibly resilient we are as a species. And if one person listening to this believes me and lets it be true for them, what I'm saying, then I will have done my work. Because that one person is then going to feel better. They're going to have a different vibration. They're going to send that out, and it's going to be this ripple effect.
Yeah.
Like those old shampoo commercials. And I told two friends, and they told two friends, and they told two friends, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to change the world. You just have to heal yourself if you need healing, and be your best self as you step forward in the world.
Yeah.
And that will create that amazing ripple effect. Um, and I love working with people one-on-one. I do have a private practice here, and I see people in person. I also see people online. So if you want to connect with me to take this conversation further, or do some training with me, or some healing work with me, you can find me through my website, and you can find me on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. And then I've also had stuff taken down from my YouTube channel.
Man, you can't say anything out of the norm today.
Oh, that's right. That's right. However, there are still about 300 and some odd videos on my
Well,
YouTube
that's
channel,
awesome.
all different things. And those three
Great.
levels of intuitive information are there. There's workshops on intuition that I've done. There's pieces from my classroom, from my healer's course. So there's lots of resources on the YouTube. And then, the usual, the Facebook, the Instagram. But most importantly, my newsletter, because that we have a personal connection on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I really do share some really fun things. This one coming out is your epidermis is showing, like we were
Oh,
talking about earlier. So
what a nice tie-in.
I know. What did I just
Oh,
say there? Yeah.
well, I will make sure and link everything in the show notes for everyone. And you said something there at the end that caught my attention, and it was that we don't have to change the world. It's just about going within and changing yourself or seeing yourself for who you are and getting in touch with that larger connection. So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining me again today, Megan. I hope we can do it again.
I do as well. Thank you, Lindsay.